Hey nerds, what's up? Today I'll be talking about two semi-new releases, Dark One by Brandon Sanderson and The Once and Future Witches by Alix E Harrow. See ya after the jump. So these are both decently new releases, and I haven't seen a ton of discussion around them yet, so I thought I would throw my opinion into the ring. Let's start with Dark One by Brandon Sanderson. Now, Dark One is a non-Cosmere graphic novel by Brandon Sanderson. Sanderson has said that he's had the idea for a novel about a chosen one that is actually intended to be a villain instead of a hero for a really long time. And in one of his more recent State of the Sanderson addresses, he talked about how he just simply doesn't have the time to realize all of his novel dreams and finish the Cosmere in his lifetime, so he's been trying to offset some of his ideas in easier to produce formats like a graphic novel. Now, I have to be upfront, I am not really a graphic novel reader. It is just not necessarily a format that really appeals to me, so I feel like my criticism of this book may be tinted by that reason. I've read a few graphic novels and I've loved some of them and I haven't liked some of them. It's just not necessarily a format that I am drawn to. And so my biggest issue with Dark One is I loved the world building, I loved the story idea, but it felt like Sanderson's works just aren't necessarily suited for this format because he is very heavy on world building and secrets and layers, and it just doesn't really feel like you can cram that all in to just pretty much dialogue. Like, there's just not a lot of exposition, and I feel like he needs a lot of that to describe his ideas. And so because of that, I felt like I was missing out on so much in this novel. Now, at first I thought that this was a standalone, and so I'm very grateful when I finally noticed the book one on the side. I think that will help with a lot of the ideas that I just didn't feel like were fully developed. I felt a little confused at the end, and not the good kind of confused where you're like, I wonder what that's about, but more like I feel like I should understand more than I currently do about what's going on. And so I just didn't love that. I particularly didn't like the turn of character the main character had. His sudden reversal of views seemed so sudden in this format, and I just kept thinking the entire time, I would like this so much more if it was a novel, if I just had more time with these people, if I had more time with these ideas. That being said, I really loved the ideas. The world seems super interesting. So I just think the graphic novel format just isn't something that I particularly love. I also thought the illustrations were amazing. I really thought they were beautiful, and I preferred them much to the White Sand graphic novelization. So for me, Dark One by Brandon Sanderson is actually only a 3 out of 5. I think that's the lowest I've ever given one of his books, but it's not really a book. It's hard for me with the format. I'm hoping with the release of the other books, I will feel better about the storyline and getting more of that info. Moving on to The Once and Future Witches by Alix E Harrow. So I actually pre-ordered this book quite a while ago, right after I finished reading The 10,000 Doors of January. Now, if you've watched my review on that book, you'll know that I just fell in love with January. I just thought it was such a beautiful piece of artwork, and I loved the author, and I immediately started following her and pre-ordered this novel, so I had just extremely high expectations for it. And I'll be honest, this book started off a little weak to me. If you've listened to my other reviews, you know that one thing I'm really annoyed by nowadays is that authors have kind of lost the art of subtlety. They've lost the ability to write in a way that is showing more than telling their views. And this book really suffers from that in the beginning. It comes really hard out of the gate, and it was such a disappointment because I felt like January was a very thoughtful book, something I really needed to discuss with people and like, what did this mean? What did you think that she was trying to get across? Whereas this, it was just so obvious and it was so forward-thinking. Like, I love the idea of suffragettes as witches, but it hits so hard. Like, we get it. It's a woman empowerment book. The right to vote, like, I obviously love that stuff. I'm obviously very into that, but it just came off hard. And it just felt like we needed a little step back. I do think, though, it totally hit its stride later in the novel. She really started hitting on things that were a little bit more interesting to me, like the idea of things that people think aren't important being a very part of a woman's nature, like children's songs or housework and the hidden things that could be in there. And that's maybe not as traditionally what we think. And so I did like that exploration, but it did start a little tough. I also think it's a little long. Once they have a successful book, it seems like authors just think they can write as long as they want, but it might have been a little long for the story. However, There are some amazing things about this novel. I just kind of started with the stuff I didn't like. The biggest success of this novel is the relationship between the three sisters and the three main characters of the story. I love a good sister story, and the way that Harrow weaved the narration of these characters together was just masterful. I cared so much for them, and I felt that their relationships felt real. There was love and sorrow and bitterness and forgiveness, and the way their stories developed just really tugged at my heartstrings and really made me root for these characters and feel very emotionally connected to them in such a way that connected me to the book. And I think that is definitely the strongest aspect. I also loved the way she used representation in this novel. It's just my personal opinion. I feel that some authors who try to represent different viewpoints tend to make those characters just about that one thing, and they are not fully realized people. And I don't want to give it away, so I'm not going to say who I'm talking about, but there's a particular side character in the story whose storyline I think was just done so well. It felt real. She was a full-dimensional character and also had this other aspect to her that richened her story instead of just making her kind of a cartoonish 2D image. And I thought that was done very well. One other criticism I have is I felt like the romances were a little rushed in this novel. Like I didn't quite understand some of the story beats. I am a non-romantic, so that might be a part of it. But I thought there were some things that could be done better. If you've read this book, comment and tell me what you thought. I don't want to spoil it here, but I'd love to discuss it with you in the comments. Overall, this was a solid 4 out of 5 for me. It did start a little weak, but ultimately my connection to the characters and my deep caring for how things turned out really turned the novel around for me. I also read it very quickly, so it was obviously very entertaining, even despite its weaknesses. So I think it was a good book. It didn't hit quite as hard to me personally as January, but still a very solid read, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. So what did you think? Let me know in the comments. Did I get it right? Did you like Dark One? Did you like the ones in Future Witches? Have you read them yet? Let me know. I want to hear, and I want to discuss some of the finer parts of the novels in the comment section, which can be a little bit more spoilery. And as always, if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. See you next time. Bye.